Hello, Merry Christmas. It is the day after Christmas, and I hope everyone had a very relaxing day. If that's your holiday, I hope you enjoyed it with good people and good food. I have a writing group that I participate in, and I had an interesting experience. One of the writers turned in a script, and I did not respond well to it, and I didn't understand it, and I wasn't really able to give clear notes on it because I didn't have a clear vision of, oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. I didn't have a clear vision of what was trying to be accomplished here. And I apologized, but said I didn't like the characters. I didn't care about any of them. And so I couldn't really track the story. It was not an easy note to give. And I clearly hurt her feelings because although we spent time talking it through, there was an email that came in the next day that basically was giving me notes on my notes. And the note was, you need to try harder. And I think the disconnect happened when I said that none of her characters spoke to me. I didn't like any of them. And it got me to thinking about why that's important. And there's also the added aspect of characters do not have to be likable for us to care about them, for us to like them. I know that sounds really weird, but let's start there. I look at a movie like The Triangle of Sadness, which was a horror show for me to watch. There's a section in the middle that's so gross and goes on so long. And I know it's supposed to be a comedy about eat the rich, but there's a point where watching suffering going on and on and on and on isn't funny for me. And then I left the movie theater, and the longer it's been since I've seen that movie, the more brilliant I realize it is, because I was completely dialed in. I was totally interested to see what was going to happen. How was this going to unfold? The ending doesn't have to be happy or sad. It doesn't have to be triumphant for it to be a good movie experience. I cared about what was unfolding, and a lot of that boiled down to being able to connect emotionally with one or more characters, which, despite some of the grotesque nature of that film, I was able to do, and it did have a very strong moral lesson, which has only become more and more clear to me as I think about that movie a lot. It really does stay with me. So I think it's important to acknowledge you do not have to have likable characters for us to like the characters. Another really good example of that is The Penguin, which was on HBO. And this is not a likable character, the Penguin, Oswald. He's awful. He's cowering and simpering and selfish and narcissistic and evil, and there's a lot to really dislike about this guy. Really a lot. He's not somebody you would want to sit across from at the dinner table. And I have so much compassion for him. And that comes down to really great writing and Colin Farrell's performance. He really finds the places that explain, even with just a gesture or a look, explain why this character is so profoundly damaged, and lets you have an emotional connection where maybe you can say, what would I do in that situation? How are the choices that he's making so very different from what I would choose? And it's very easy to say, I would never do that. He had lots of opportunities from the Penguin to say, I would never do that. But I think it's a masterful story where you can look at this character and, even though you hate everything they do, have compassion and understanding for who they are and what they do. You see the characters in both of these examples evolve. They start out in one position and they create a more powerful ending for themselves. So when I go back to having to give my friend this note, I didn't like any of your characters, I really had to reflect about it and think about it. And the big issue for me is, not only are they not likable, they don't grow or change or evolve. If I can get with a story, with a character, if I see them making new choices and learning and changing, and even if they don't win, even if they ultimately fail, it's enough for me to see that they grew, that they changed, and they made maybe different choices. When a character is unable to do that, that means you've got a flat character. You've got no arc. No arc. And this circumstance is a horror story where everybody gets trapped and needs to be rescued. And in the duration of the film, they pretty much, everybody turns against everybody else. And we just see them sink into worse and worse condition. So here's, when you have a passive character, things are happening to them or for them, but they are not making things happen, and they are not making changes, and they are not attempting to steer the ship. They just sort of accept what's happened, and then the next event happens. Injury, illness, madness, and death are events that happen to a character. They are not character development. So, you look at a film like Born on the 4th of July, and he loses the ability to walk. And that's an injury. How does he approach it? Well, he throws himself into physical therapy and tries very hard to regain his ability to walk. And when that proves to be too high a hill to climb, too far to go, he takes his injury and his experience and he transforms it into a moment where he can speak out for other people who have been through what he went through, and prevent people in future generations from experiencing the same thing. It's a very powerful movie, and the example of, he has injury, but then it's how he chooses to deal with that injury and how he lets himself evolve as a result of the injury. That shows a very active protagonist. It's very hard these days to find a fully produced show or movie that features a passive protagonist. There's a real struggle to find examples of that. I can think of two. One is not that recent, and one is ancient history. The one that's not that recent stars John Cusack, who doesn't love John Cusack? He was everybody's boyfriend in my generation. You know, we were all looking for the guy who would hold the boombox over his head. But here he is in this film as Edgar Allan Poe. What is it called? Nevermore? I don't remember the title. I'm not going to force you to look it up because everything happens to him. He doesn't drive the story at all. The other example I have in mind, and you know, God bless you if you decide to look this one up, is Brigadoon, which was Gene Kelly and Sid Charisse, and he, you know, is an American who goes out in the Scottish hillside, and every couple hundred years this magical city shows up. It emerges from the mist, and he goes and he falls in love with the girl from the town. And his character doesn't make anything happen. His character just is lucky enough to be in the place that has the place and time that this village shows up out of the mist, and they just happen to have a girl that he loves, and he's trapped there until he's not trapped there. But none of it is his choice. And you know, eventually he gets to make a life-changing choice, but it's not a driving story. It's a chance to watch these beautiful people dance around on rocky hillsides, and they're gorgeous to look at, but nothing really happens, to be honest. When you have a passive protagonist, it does not matter how many events or fight scenes or defuse the bomb or save the president or whatever moments you have, none of it matters if we don't care. And we cannot care if your character is just a prop. If your character is just a reason to have ninjas fall in from the sky and kick everybody's ass, it's not good enough. Your character has to be evolving and changing and growing. And it allows for the audience to also have a vicarious experience of evolution and change and growth. We do not have to be in alignment with a character to appreciate a character. Passive protagonist, it's a tricky thing. So I encourage you to have another look at your protagonist and figure out how they are changing, how they are changed. What do they have to give up, or what do they have to start doing to become a different person? And that's what I have to share about this. I hope you're having time to create and build and do in this winter season. And you do not have to be a writer to enjoy creative time. We will be doing another digital workspace on Sunday. And I want to thank everybody who has come along so far. It's an interesting adventure that I'm having. It's not necessarily comfortable jumping on camera and talking and sharing. I really want it to be beneficial and helpful to you. So if there is something I can do that would make it more beneficial, please let me know in the comments below. You could like, you could subscribe. That will really help me out. And I want to thank you for being here and thank you for your time. And I love that we get to do this together. We get to have creative time together. So until next time, have a good one.